Alright, I've got a bone to pick with Netflix. This has been a problem with them for some time, but this year has been the most egregious in my opinion. Two of my most anticipated movies of the year by two prolific directors who have lineups that would make 90% of their catalogue weep, because please remember that for the longest time the most successful movie from this platform was Red Notice of all things. Thank you, K-pop Demon Hunters, for defeating that great evil. And they choose to clip their wings and burn a fuck ton of money they would have gotten by giving them wide theatrical releases. I was searching to make sure I hadn't missed any screenings of the cinema I frequent, but nope, they didn't have a single frame of Frankenstein or Wake Up Dead Man playing. I mean, you get the guy who everyone associates modern day creature features with to direct an adaptation of one of the most prolific and impactful horror stories of all time, and debatably the original sci-fi story, with Oscar Isaac, Mia Goth, and Jacob Elordi leading, and then the third entry in the Knives Out series, which was a huge theatrical hit when the first movie came out, with the creative minds fully willing to continue to create more modern mysteries to capture the audience's attention and minds. And instead of the mutually beneficial partnership they could have had across so many cinemas that keep the spirit of film alive while putting more money in Netflix's pockets, they just gatekeep it onto their platform like a rich child that won't share its toys. At least Rian Johnson is free from the shackles of Netflix now and can release his funny little whodunit movies on the big screen again. Unless he takes another deal, which, to quote a really good friend of mine who I know has always got my back, would be like 15 9/11s. Complaints about Netflix aside though, for now. Here we are with Frankenstein, a name I'm sure you've all heard, even if it's been misconstrued of who it should be associated to at times. The Universal monsters really are back, huh? The Invisible Man had a fresh take in 2020 with a sequel on the way. Wolfman just came out this year, albeit a mixed reception, which would have never happened if the scheduling conflict that caused Ryan Gosling to leave the project never happened. Fuck you, COVID, I want to see him wolf out. And Robert Eggers is releasing his own werewolf movie next year, which I am very excited for. Hell, we're even getting a new Mummy movie, which is a sequel to the 1999 one with all the cast returning. And I will be seated. Brendan Fraser is going to greet that audience of bisexuals who he awakened like an old friend. The only one left out so far is the thing from Black Lagoon, which, ironically, I think Del Toro could do a great job at directing. Who knows. Anyway, though, Frankenstein, a reimagining of the iconic classic, starring my beloved Oscar Isaac, my Moon Knight and a perfect pick who understands the assignment when playing Victor Frankenstein. Mia Goth, who has already proven herself as a criminally underrated actress after her Oscar-worthy performance in Pearl. And shout out to her dual performance in X, that was really good too. And of course, Jacob Elordi, someone who I've literally never seen in anything else before, because I'm too old in spirit to watch Euphoria. I don't hate myself enough to watch the Kissing Booth trilogy, at least not ironically. And I've actually been meaning to watch Pirates of the Caribbean 5, but I keep forgetting. It is one of my favorite franchises, so I'd be quite sad if I agree with the majority opinion that it's tarnished. But whatever. Point is, I don't know the guy. I can't judge based off of any expectations, but the bottom line is, these three actors are the core of the entire film and support every decision made. And they do so with such elegance. Now, I'm not going to run down the plot of Frankenstein. If you don't know it by now, then shame on you. Mary Shelley is awesome. Go read it. I'll wait. Okay, while you're doing that, let's actually talk about the movie. First, the visuals. This is as gorgeous as a movie can be while being on a Netflix budget. Sadly, you can tell sometimes the sets aren't as grandiose or sprawling as they could have been if it had a bigger budget. And I will continue to blame Netflix for this because of what could have been. I still love the aesthetics though. You have beautiful architecture for the upper-class buildings we see in Victor's story that create a gorgeous sense of environment for what he grew up in and is surrounded by in his adult life. Even if it also has the same air of hostility due to the feeling like an unfamiliar environment. Whereas for the creature's story, we see widespread and breathtaking elements of nature that go hand in hand with what the creature is trying to learn about and appreciate. Life. We see multiple seasons of a really cozy area, and it was a joy to behold such sights. Not to mention, of course, the ship, probably the most iconic set piece for the movie, and Del Toro said he pulled out all the stops to get it right because he understood that the ship itself has a personality. And I do really like it as a central focus for the narrative to keep going back to. Since the story is told in the format of flashbacks, Victor is found freezing in a snowstorm by the crew of this ship after they marooned in the ice. Not knowing how to escape, they search the nearby areas, and Victor tells his story recounting of how he got to this moment, and who he's been to get him there. Later, the creature doing the same, and returning to the present for the final act. Frankenstein is obviously a story brimming with metaphors and symbolism, in a way that makes me feel like the ogre meme when trying to dissect. I dropped English after GCSE, okay guys? I'm a maths gal. but don't let them know that. And the ship can be read as a representation of the current lives and relationship of Victor and the creature, once beheld as grand and used to uphold many others' lives, charging forward and venturing smoothly into the future, before getting spontaneously halted and being stuck in one place, unable to go back and undo the mistakes of the past, but also unable to move past the present and into a future. Just stuck. Stuck until they work out their issues in a little bit of family therapy, Dr. Phil style. It really is just stunning to look at, though. I used to not be a fan of the sections of Frankenstein set in the snow, but these ended up being my second favorite parts after the creature story. I think the main fault some people might have with the story of this Frankenstein iteration is how it works as an adaptation, because while the cultural eye has much more shifted in favor of the monster over Victor, the original novel has both of them doing pretty fucked up shit, and it's much more of a horror story with cold-blooded murders and more of a cat-and-mouse chase throughout. This is definitely still a horror movie, but only by name in my opinion, because there's really more sci-fi elements to it. I think Del Toro just wanted to make The Shape of Water again, to be honest. We all know how much he loves writing human monster romances, and you can see this because the creature is 100% more sympathetic here than originally intended. Not that he wasn't sympathetic at all originally, but it was still up in the air of if Victor or the creature was more valid in their crusades to kill each other. Is it more cruel to bring someone into this world knowing that you will never give them the normal life they deserve, or taking away the lives of anyone close to your abuser? It's a vicious cycle that shows just how corrupting abuse can be to a person. And Victor should know this, of course, considering his father hit him when he got academic questions incorrect. And instead of choosing to see things from the perspective of a victim who wouldn't want anyone else to experience that kind of pain, he just continues it and puts himself in the exact same position of his father. Another egotist obsessed with himself, trying to gain fame and fortune, and not caring about the little things left along the way. It's telling that the first word he teaches the creature isn't dada, or anything related to fatherhood. It's Victor. He doesn't want to be known as a father. He wants to be known as Victor Frankenstein, revolutionary genius. And there's a lot of different readings you can take from this movie, of all the characters and situations they're put in. One of the most interesting to me being Elizabeth and Victor's mother, who are both played by Mia Goth, of course. The section where we learn about Victor's mother really enticed me because of his attachment to her, and I noticed that she has very few lines, which is unfortunately understandable considering she is a woman married to an upper-class, very wealthy and powerful man who also has a huge ego. But I noticed that most of the time all she says is Victor, which echoes the creature but also makes me think that this flashback isn't fully truthful and old Vicky boy is an unreliable narrator, only caring when attention is paid to him, and that being the reason he was such a mama's boy. And yes, his relationship with Elizabeth is something Freud would enjoy a bit too much, but her defiance against the men in her life who see her as nothing more than a trophy to be desired speaks volumes of the kind of existence she was being forced to live, stuck in a jar like the butterflies she captures with Victor, and the reason being that she's the prettiest. Until one thing sees her for who she really is, and respects and appreciates her company, and that must have been one of the first acts of true unadulterated kindness she had experienced in so long, considering how quickly she becomes interested in interacting with the creature. In another life, they would have been freaky as hell. But alas. I do think Elizabeth as a character is probably quite telling of Mary Shelley herself, her own experiences and thoughts on how her future would pan out, but considering that she kept her husband's heart that wouldn't burn when he was cremated in a desk drawer and banged on top of her mother's grave, it probably went well. Again though, I just have to say, huge props to the entire cast of this movie. They all feel so well realized and just have so much entertaining charisma. The eccentricism of Oscar Isaac's performance paired with the slow descent into vitreous anger. He's a great representation of toxic masculinity and especially obsession, considering how he could have taken up a job once more with the board that would have welcomed him with open arms. Yet he was too fixated on cheating death and creating a medical revolution that goes against the wills of nature, and still, in his cowardice, running away from the consequences of his actions and trying to destroy his work. Mia Goth plays a perfectly defined and sympathetic Elizabeth, and I really hope she gets recognized for how good of an actress she is in the mainstream so we can see her in more roles. Jacob Elordi is of course playing the most sympathetic monster performance to date probably. And he is very much treated like a curious and stunted child who just wants to love and learn and gets squandered by the evil Victor. And this is the main issue I've seen discussed about the movie. The fact that this interpretation is very much on the side of the fact that Victor is the monster. And they even say it in the movie as if they needed to drive that point home anymore. And I don't have any issues with a point being unsubtle. Some of the best recent movies have very in-your-face themes, but I kind of wish they just didn't repeat it so much. Show it in multiple ways instead of literally saying it. And this removal of the nuance of the original story is a little jarring. The monster does a lot of bad shit, as I mentioned already, and while I really enjoyed this iteration and everything he goes through, it kind of felt like a very different movie, which isn't a bad thing to do with adaptations or anything, but it's really hard to make an adaptation worthwhile when you're dealing with one of the most important books ever made and change it in ways to make it more interesting or have more prevalent themes. But maybe that's a bit of a cynical way of looking at it. Because the bottom line is, I enjoyed this movie. There was a lot of love put into it. A cast that appreciates the characters and translated them excellently from the pages to the screen. A director who was so enthusiastic about everything and clearly honored to adapt such a cornerstone of horror and monster media. This was definitely a passion project, and you can feel that shine through and through. Everyone who worked on it should be proud of what they've created and how much it resonated with people. Because there's so many amazing lines here related to identity, parenthood, relationships, growing up, and just figuring out what life is like. To you, I am obscene, but to myself, I simply am. You only listen to me when I hate you. And many more that I'm probably remembering. These are just off the top of my head. There isn't much else I can call it than beautiful. It has that same profound introspection present in all of the best adaptations, and is probably my favorite of them so far. So if you haven't already, give Frankenstein a watch. I do recommend it quite a bit. If I had to give it a score, I'll go ahead and slap on a solid 8 out of 10. Hopefully Del Toro gets to make Bride of Frankenstein, because that would be a real trip. And if you don't want to have parts of your body amalgamated into a single being that suddenly gains sentience, you should subscribe. Quickly now, I'm rapidly approaching your location and you do not have much time left. The YouTube algorithm isn't exactly kind to smaller content creators like myself, so every little helps. Especially since I'm trying to hit 750 subscribers by the end of the year. Only 0.3% of my viewers are actually subscribed anyway, so just make sure you're not in the majority. Also, like the video if you enjoyed it because it gives me serotonin and tells YouTube that I'm doing a good job. And don't need to be taken out back in shock quite yet. With that said, I hope you have a great day. Remember to take care and have fun. Don't take life too seriously, or you'll end up like Victor Frankenstein one day. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.